You ever gone hiking alone? No voices beside you, no phone buzzing in your pocket. Just you, the trees, and miles of wilderness ahead. For Jimmy, that silence was exactly what he wanted. He wasn't new to hiking. He'd planned this trip carefully. A multi-day trek through the backcountry. No service, no distractions. He wanted distance from the noise of his life, from crowded streets, from people. Out here, he could finally breathe again. But silence in the forest is never just silence. Sometimes it hides something else. And sometimes, the more you listen, the more you realize you're not alone. This is the story of a hiker who was never truly alone in the forest. He was stalked for miles. Jimmy wasn't reckless. He wasn't the type to wander into the woods without a plan. His friends knew him as careful, methodical, the guy who double-checked maps, gear, and supplies. But he was also stubborn. And this time, he wanted to push himself farther. 3 days alone in the backcountry. No roads, no towns, just wilderness. The first day went smooth. The trail stretched out under golden light, and every mile felt like progress. He passed no other hikers, only the occasional deer bounding through brush or squirrel darting across the trail. It was exactly what he wanted. But mid-afternoon, something changed. It started with a noise, a branch breaking, not far behind him. Jimmy froze, eyes scanning the trees. Nothing. So he kept walking. And that's when he noticed it. Every time his boot pressed down, he heard something else press down too. Not in sync. A beat off, heavy, deliberate. Like something big was matching his pace. He told himself it had to be a deer, or maybe even a bear, keeping its distance. But the sound wasn't random. It was steady, controlled. And when Jimmy stopped, it stopped. That was the first time he felt it. Not just being watched, but measured. As if something in the trees was testing him, deciding whether to step closer or hold back. Jimmy adjusted his pack, tightened the straps, and pressed deeper into the forest. But with every step, the weight on his shoulders wasn't just his gear anymore. It was the sense that something else was walking the trail with him. By evening, Jimmy found a clearing just off the trail. Tall pines leaned overhead, their needles whispering in the breeze. He set down his pack, struck his small camp stove, and heated a meal. Normal, routine, comfort in the middle of nowhere. But as darkness settled, that comfort thinned. The sounds of the forest shifted. And every few minutes, something snapped in the tree line. Too heavy for a rabbit. Too intentional for wind. Jimmy froze with his spoon halfway to his mouth. He waited, listened. Nothing. So he forced a bite down, but his stomach churned. That same feeling again. He wasn't just camping. He was being watched. Then came the smell. At first, he thought it was his food burning, but it was different. Rotting, sharp, like wet fur and spoiled meat. It drifted in on the breeze, and it didn't fade. It thickened. Like whatever carried it was drawing closer. Jimmy's skin prickled. The smell wrapped around the clearing, seeping into his clothes, his hair. He grabbed his flashlight and aimed toward the trees. The brush to his left bent. Branches flexed, not snapping, like something was pushing through slowly, carefully. Too big to hide, but too smart to show itself. Jimmy's light darted toward the sound, and the movement stopped. He sat there for an hour, flashlight trembling in his hand, until his arm burned. And just when he thought the forest might be empty again, a rock the size of his fist rolled out of the dark and landed right beside his fire. Jimmy didn't sleep that night, not because of the noises not because of the smell, but because he knew. Things in the forest don't throw rocks. People do. By the time dawn broke, Jimmy's nerves were raw. The fire had long since died, but nothing had stepped into the clearing. Nothing he could see, at least. A new day meant safety, or so he thought. Jimmy walked to the tree where he'd strung his food bag the night before. Standard backcountry rule, you tie it high, out of reach of bears. He remembered the knots. He remembered checking them twice. But when he looked up, the branch was bare, the rope hung loose, and the bag was gone. He stared at the empty cord. If it had been a bear, the rope would have been torn, the branch clawed or broken. But the rope was untied, knots pulled clean, like someone with hands had worked them loose. Jimmy scanned the dirt below. That's when he saw them. Impressions. Large. Too large. The prints sank deeper than his own boots. Broad, flat, almost human in shape, but longer, wider, and spaced in a way that meant whatever left them had a stride far greater than his own. Another sound. A whoop, low, echoing through the trees, answering something deeper in the forest. Jimmy's chest went cold. Whatever had taken his food wasn't just one. There was no more comfort here. Only the creeping realization that he hadn't walked into empty wilderness. He had walked straight into something else's territory. By the time Jimmy made camp again, his legs were trembling. He told himself he'd set up a small fire, eat what little was left in his pack, and force himself to rest. But even as the flames caught, he knew he wouldn't be sleeping tonight. Once the sun slipped below the horizon, the woods went silent. No crickets, no nightbirds, only the hiss of the fire. And then, a snap. Jimmy's head whipped toward the tree line. He saw nothing. He sat frozen, the hair on his arms prickling. Then another sound, closer this time. A slow, dragging step, like something massive was pacing just outside the ring of light. Jimmy's stomach clenched. He dove into his tent, snapping the zipper shut like it was armor. But the moment he did, he felt it. A hand, dragging slowly across the fabric wall, the pressure of fingers brushing just inches from his face. Something tall was leaning over him. Jimmy scrambled for his pack, unzipping the flap and bursting into the night. Instinct, pure and wild, took over. Behind him, the forest exploded. Footsteps, heavy, relentless footsteps, slamming the earth in rhythm with his own. Not stumbling, not chasing blindly, pacing him, herding him. The forest wasn't just alive. It was hunting. And Jimmy was the prey. Jimmy stumbled into a clearing, legs trembling, lungs on fire. The horizon was changing, the black of night thinning into the first pale gold of dawn. The forest, which had felt endless and suffocating, suddenly began to open. He could see a town ahead. Behind him, the presence hesitated, and with a low grunt retreated back into the forest. The smell lingered, the silence weighed heavy, but the forest was empty again. At least, empty enough to let him go. He had come into the forest searching for solitude, for quiet, for space away from the world. What he found instead was something older than the trees themselves. Something that had always been here, watching from the shadows. And though he left the forest behind, the forest never left him. Jimmy doesn't tell the story often. When he does, people smile politely. They say it was a bear, exhaustion, fear playing tricks. But Jimmy knows. He remembers the smell, the weight of its presence pressing against him. He left the woods that week with his body intact. But his mind, his faith in what the world really is, was changed forever. And if one day Deep in the forest, the shadows move, and something is watching you. Will you turn back? Or will you walk the path they've already chosen for you?